If there were a way to get your business or new product to 2x, 10x, or 100x overnight, would you do it? If there were a way to all but guarantee that no matter what business you're in, it could become more successful than it currently is, would you do it? And if you could compress a decade of building a business into weeks, would you do it? If so, this workshop is for you. And using the super influencer process I'll outline in a second will make someone here today enough money to retire. That is a promise. I would know because I've also used what I'm about to share with you to do exactly that. I'm Alex Hormozi. My first big business I scaled to $2.5 million a month, which was B2B, gym launch, was gym licensing. My second business was an e-commerce business that sold through an affiliate and influencer program, which got to $1.7 million a month, which is B2B2C. My third company was a software for lead gen agencies, which we grew entirely off of affiliates and influencers, which we got to $1.6 million per month. And so I've paid real money to get influencers to promote my businesses. Just to give you some context, I spent over $20 million on influencers to promote Prestige Labs. That's the actual checks. That's what I paid out. Not what we made, that's what I paid out. And in Allen, I spent over $22.8 million on influencers to promote the software. Those are my actual payouts from our dashboard. And I've had over 23,000 affiliates who promoted my last book, $100 Million Leads. That's a screenshot from our CRM, which helped me sell over 1 million copies of my last 2 books, $100 Million Offers and $100 Million Leads. And you can see the Slack message from my book manager there. And so this process that I'm about to share with you creates real, life-changing value. And it allowed me to sell my first 2 businesses to American Pacific Group for $46.2 million, and sell Allen with a trailing 12 month of $12 million in revenue, and then use all that money to start acquisition.com to invest in and scale companies. And currently, our portfolio together is about $17 million a month. And so I've made millions using influencers to promote my businesses, and I can help you do the same. And so I start with this proof because there's a lot of sucky fluff that's being taught out there, like this fluff sucks, from people who've never done what they claim and simply copy and paste stuff that they don't understand. People being like, I teach things that I've never done. And I refuse to do that. And so after spending, losing, and then finally making millions on influencers, I've learned a lot of what not to do. But I also figured out a few things that work. And so today I'm going to share with you a 3-step super influencer process anyone can use to get a flood of buyers into your business for free. Even and especially if you have no following or money yourself. And so here is the 3-step process. Number 1, know which influencer to pick. Number 2, know how to get them to talk to you. And then number 3, I'm going to show you how to get them to promote your stuff. Because if you know who to pick and you get them to talk to you and you get them to promote your stuff, you will make more money than if you do not. And arguably, if you pick the right influencer, you might make life-changing amounts of money. And so think about it this way. If tomorrow, The Rock or Taylor Swift agreed to promote your business, do you think your business would grow? No matter what you sell, be it umbrellas, contracting, tequila, or VA agencies, or whatever it is. If The Rock got up there and said, this is the dude, do you think you would make more money? Obviously. Of course it would. And better yet, do you think there's any single move, and this is the key point, we talk about opportunity cost of the time and effort we put into every move we make in business. Do you think there's any single move that you could make that would make you more money in less time than partnering with someone like that? No, probably not. So then why on earth are we not putting all of our time into the one thing that could make you the absolute most amount of money in the shortest period of time? I don't know. Why not? And so before I dive in, let me explain why taking action, what I'm about to share with you, may be the most important decision in your life. All right, so obviously option 1, you could be lame. Option 2, do it and change your life. So I'm going to opt for option 2, and hopefully you do too. And so there's a reason that this is so important, especially right now. There's a big shift that's happening in the economy and specifically the economy of attention. Traditional advertising is dying. Social media and influencer brands are on the rise. You've all heard this, but let me show you some stats to support it. All right, it's the reason that Logan Paul and Prime, a 2-year-old company, 2 years old, is now beating. They have more sales than Powerade, a 36-year-old company. 2 years, 36, and they're crushing them. It's the same reason Mr. Beast's Feastables, a less than 2-year-old company, are in the multiple hundreds of millions of dollars a year in sales, and they're gaining rapidly on Hershey's, which was something that before this time and age was thought to be impossible. And it's why so many mega brands are getting launched with influencers like Kylie has her cosmetics, Proper 12 with Conor McGregor, Kim has Skims, and you've got Ryan Reynolds with Aviation Gin, and he's got a bunch of other brands as well. So many of these mega brands are getting launched with mega influencers or super influencers because they can almost guarantee profitability on day one. So think about it like this. If you can reach 1 million people for free, as long as your product sells for more than it costs, you make money, period. And so the question just becomes, which thing will make the most money rather than whether that thing will make money at all. So Mr. Beast here has to make the decision of, am I gonna promote margaritas or am I gonna promote chocolate? But if he did promote margaritas, guess what? He would still make money. Not as much as he could if he did chocolate, but he would still make money. And what crazy world can you live in that you can guarantee millions and millions in sales on something that actually has poor product market fit? This is one of those big insurance policies you can take out on the future of your business if you make the right pick. And this has never existed before this moment until now. And so here's some graphs, because everybody likes graphs. It's the same reason there are more viewers on internet than there are on television, more podcast listeners than there are radio listeners, and even crazier, this costs less and converts higher, which means that there's more total people watching, listening, and consuming, and more of them buying for less money overall. The game has changed, yet so few businesses are taking advantage of it. And so you can see why this is such a huge opportunity. Said differently, if the only thing between you and the fastest business growth you could possibly imagine was 3 steps, wouldn't it be worth doing? Great. I think so too. So let's dive in. The 3-step super influencer process. How to pick them, how to get them to talk to you, how to get them to promote your stuff. So let's start with number 1, how to pick the right influencer. So there was a movie that came out a year ago or a year or two ago called Air. And the premise was simple. Nike, a shoe brand, was struggling to enter the basketball market at the time. This is not drawn to scale. The representation is that they weren't making that much money. Everybody else was making more. Fantastic. And every year, they would spend money on player sponsorships. And they would get, quote, second-tier rookies to wear their stuff. There's the guy, he's second tier, he's wearing Nike. And they kept losing the best players every year to Adidas and Converse. Yes, Converse was actually a big player back then. And so the exhausted partnership manager, AKA talent scout, insisted to Phil Knight that they go all in on this new young rookie named Michael Jordan. He was one of the top picks, and they bet their entire basketball budget. So they took what they were going to pay 5 to 10 players and just gave it to one. And they did it in order to sign him. And he got the biggest deal that anyone had ever signed because Nike needed him more than he needed them. And they hoped that they would do $2 million in basketball shoe sales. But instead, they did $122 million in the first year. And they created an iconic brand that has yet to be surpassed decades later. And you can see how Nike now eats the entire pie. All because they went all in on the right influencer. They picked the right guy. And so the question for you is, who's your Michael Jordan? And so there's 2 ways you can approach this. 1, you have a branded product and you go find a super influencer to partner with. So you have the thing and then you go to find the person. Or 2, you find the person and then you brand something around them. Either works. So the Nike Air story was an example of number 1. Nike was selling basketball shoes. People who wear basketball shoes tend to watch and idolize basketball players. So finding the best available basketball player made the most sense for them. In this case, Michael Jordan. So they kept their brand, and then Jordan promoted a personal line. That's how they married the two, because he needed them less than they needed him, but Nike overall was still a bigger brand than Michael Jordan was, especially as a rookie. An example of number two is some company that you probably haven't heard of, which is Congo. Congo is a drink manufacturer. They have 3 massive brands underneath of their umbrella, and one of them is Prime. The other 2 also do $500 million a year in sales. And you've heard of those too, but for the purpose of the presentation, I'm just gonna focus on Congo. So Congo, you've never heard of. Logan Paul, you probably have. And so they decided to say, we're gonna go find the influencer and create the product that's branded for them. And we're gonna do the delivery. And so the difference these 2 examples is, Nike, you get the influencer to promote your brand. Or you deliver on theirs. That's the difference between the 2 models. Both work. And so which brand you use depends on who has the bigger audience. Because you're like, wait, how do I get which one? Well, it just depends who's bigger. So Nike had a bigger audience than Jordan, so he promoted them. Now he was still up, he was bigger in basketball than Nike, and so they created a specific line around Jordan. So that's kind of the nuance of this, and that's why understanding how this works is so important for you actually executing on it. Logan Paul has a bigger audience than Congo. More people have heard of him than Congo. And so they delivered for him. And so you can get an army of tiny influencers or find one super influencer. And the pro tip here is that the first, if you want to find lots of little guys who are 100K each, right? It will take you longer, but you'll be able to retain more ownership because you'll pretty much always be bigger than them. And that's what I did in these companies. So with Prestige Labs and Allen, both of those, I had lots of little affiliates, lots of little influencers. The second is faster and easier to manage, but you give up more. Now, I will say personally that I lean far more towards this now as I understand branding and I understand speed to market and I understand the value of aggressive growth and the insurance policy that a super influencer provides to a business, which is exactly what we did with school. I both co-own and act as my own influencer for the school games and School, the platform itself. And so you might be like, okay, well that's great for Nike and Prime and Feastables and School, but what about me? What about everyday business owners? How do we actually get in contact with influencers and super influencers? Well, first, you have to know who buys the sort of stuff you sell. The fancy term for this is ideal customer or avatar or ICP. Then you got to figure out the influencers they follow. Then you got to pick out the super influencers from there that best fit your product. And so I think about contacting people in layers. So this is tactical, all right? So everyone take notes, like this is the part we take notes on it, all right? So first, I start with influencers I know personally. Now you might be like, well, I don't know influencers. Believe it or not, you probably do know someone personally. They might not be Logan Paul, but they probably have a bigger following than you. I can almost guarantee that you know someone who has a bigger following than you. That's why you know them. And if you contact all of them, or don't know any, because I'm going to give all the people with excuses in the room, they're like, I don't want to talk to people I know. Okay, fine. So if you did contact all of them, or you don't know any, then you move on to the next circle, which is I ask my network who they know. I say, okay, I don't know any big influencers. Do y'all know any big influencers? And when I make this point, I want to emphasize this. Actually ask. You can even cut the person that you ask in on your side of the deal if they make an intro and it actually works out. And you can pay real money for this because it's exceptionally valuable for you and your business for all the points I already made. And so you just say something like, do you know XXX person, or do you know anyone who has that size audience or who caters to this type of people? And if you want to add the optional, I'm paying XXX for an intro. Now, if they don't know anyone, so this is for the people who have excuses in the room. If they don't know anyone, so you don't know anybody, and your friends don't know anybody because you live in Iraq, fantastic, then you move on to the next circle out, which is influencers you follow or have heard of. And what I do is I reach out everywhere, multiple times, and find mutual connections, and I harass the living hell out of them, and offer bounties and crazy gifts. And when I say harassing living hell, I mean of my friends, not the person. All right, to be very clear. Great way to not get a partnership done. But reaching out on multiple channels, super smart. So if you follow them on Instagram, also look at them on LinkedIn, look at them on TikTok, look at them via email, look at via direct mail. People forget about this. You can actually deliver stuff to people's address. By the way, you can't unsubscribe from direct mail. Fun fact. All right, so there are things that you can do to get people's attention. And here's what's interesting. Somebody who has a very large following on Instagram might have a very small following on LinkedIn, and they might check both of their inboxes. But where do you think you're more likely to stand out? When they get one of 10 inbox messages on LinkedIn versus the one of 1,000 they get on Instagram, right? Go everywhere because you might stick out. And you can follow up, to be clear. I'm not saying don't follow up, do that. But I definitely want to take the people I know and ask them for it. And now, if none of them respond to you, then you can go through formal channels. And this is a little bit of a pro tip. So one, obviously some of these guys will have agents if you're looking for super influencers. And I will say this, having now dealt with super influencers, it's not as much as you think most of the time. Most of the time, it's not nearly as much as you think if you're a bigger business owner, for those of you who get that. Otherwise, you'd be like, I have to spend $10 million to get this person. Honestly, superstars you can get for a couple $100,000 a year. You'd be amazed. Now, here's the little pro tip for you. Most influencers of some sort have a website, and most of them sell at least one thing. And a little pro tip for you is just actually go to their website as another place and opt in. Actually contact support, actually reach out. Find the email address on the site and reach out. You'll be amazed at, again, instead of going to the 1,000 DM inbox on Instagram, that there might only be 6 people who are actually emailing. So just don't make the assumption that because lots of people see it, lots of people take action. So I'm gonna tell you a quick analogy in this because I think this will drive it home. We recently put out, we did a contest for editors because we have a big media team at Mosey Media. And we had 1,200 people off of one post said that they were interested in the role. Now, many people were probably like, oh man, I don't want to apply for something like that because I probably don't have a shot. Well, wait for the second stat. We then gave all of those 1,200 people who wanted to be editors one raw file, and we said, just edit it, and you've got 48 hours to send it in. Guess how many of the 1,200, the 1,200 people actually submitted an edit? 60. 60, 5%, 1 in 20. So the odds are still in your favor if you actually take action. You would be amazed, and that's a pretty big number. And the same thing going for jobs, going for girls, going for whatever you want. You'd be amazed how low the bar is if you actually try. And so that's how you pick them tactically. All right, so let's just recap this work. Number one, find this biggest person that you connect with using the circles. If your audience is bigger than theirs, then you ask them to promote your thing. If their audience is bigger than yours, you offer to deliver for them. Finding your, quote, Michael Jordan can give you the benefit of years of building a massive audience without the time cost. And you immediately reap the benefits of their work in exchange for a portion of the upside. And so that's how you pick the right influencer, number one. So let's move on to step 2. You're like, okay, I've got my eyes on this guy. I've got my eyes on my Michael Jordan. Now you got to get him to talk to you. So no matter how good your thing is or the offer that you want to make them, if they don't respond to you or you can't get a hold of them, you're not going to get very far. So here's how I get them interested. Verify yourself, the magic message, and the Rule 100. 3 steps. So let's walk through the first one. So verifying yourself has 2 individual steps. First, you literally verify yourself on the platform if you can. Pay the $10 per month or whatever it is to get the blue check mark. All right? You do this because you will get 5 to 10 times the response rates. And so if I think about my time as valuable, if I can compress my time to 10x time for $10 a month, I cannot imagine a better use of resources. That means for $10, you can get 5 to 10x the time back. Absolutely worth it. Step 2 of verifying yourself is don't be like Rakesh 00018. Don't be like him. Be like Jim. Jim has a verification badge. He has a description of what he does. By the way, if you want to partner with influencers to do stuff, say so in the description. Say what you want them to see. If you're like, hey, I'm reaching out to influencers, and it just says like big music head, and you're reaching out about e-commerce stuff, probably not a good idea. They're going to immediately read your social resume and be like, this guy has nothing to do with what he's offering me. If you want to be a professional, act like a professional. Do it for money. Do it like it's your job, because it is. Here's a profile picture. Now, one thing that I would fix about Jim's is I would make it more of his face closer up and lighter and brighter, if you will. I put mine there because, of course, magic social media man that I am. Mind you, I had to learn this the hard way. My first version of this was like I was zoomed all the way out and you couldn't have seen it, it was super pixelated. All right, and so I've learned this stuff over time. So you want to make sure you have a picture that makes you look like a human being. Fantastic. And then actually use the platform. Post a few things that show who you are on whatever platform you choose to. So you can see he's got posts. Obviously, this guy's into music, and his stuff's about music. That makes sense. By the way, I don't know either of these people. I just grabbed them from my DMs. I just saw who stood out and who were people I guarantee would never respond to. All right? So in short, don't be a weirdo. Don't look like Rakesh. Be like Jim. And to be fair, Rakesh, if you do watch this, I don't think you're necessarily a weirdo. You're displaying like one. All right. So, number one, verify yourself. Check. So now, if we have verified ourselves, we got to figure out what we're actually going to say to them. So let me give you the magic message. So this is a sample message script. You would send this to an influencer. Hey, longtime fan, first time messenger. I own a company that partners with influencers to start communities. This was one I made for school that they own. Based on your following, it looks like you generate anywhere from X to Y per month in recurring income. Here's screenshots of people who started this month alone. Mind you, the screenshots don't necessarily need to be from you. They're just screenshots of other people who've had the same experience. You get the majority of the profits. We do a majority of the work. Would you be up for a 15-minute call for me to walk you through what something like this would look like? That's it. Very straightforward. Now, to be clear, the more personalized the message, the better. You only need one person to say yes. Put the time in to actually look like you took a moment to think about this person. Don't just blast 100 of these messages, copy and paste. I say long time follower, first time messenger. Guess who some of the best people to start with are? People you actually follow. Bonus points if they've already interacted with you before in the past. And guess what? If they don't respond, congratulations, you just got practice for free. Bonus points. If it is your dream influencer, offer to fly out to show them you're serious. If you incur costs, they will take you more seriously. If you want to play with the pros, you got to act like a pro. Now, if you're listening to this, you're watching this, and you're like, well, I don't have the money to fly out. That's fine. But if you want to play in the big leagues, you got to do what you got to do. And they're not going to take you seriously because they want somebody who has some level of resources and success. Now, you can fake it before you make it, which I'm not really a fan of, or you just say, I'm going all in on this. And you make the bet. And you're going to strike out sometimes. And that's okay because life is long and you only need one. And so what you'd say is something like this. You'd say, hey, I'm out that way all the time, so it's no big deal. I'm happy to stop by so we can meet one another and see if there's an opportunity that makes sense. And the key part is like, I'm out that way all the time because they also don't want to inconvenience you. But if you're like, oh, it's no problem. I'm out there that way anyway because it also shows that you're busy. You're doing other stuff. They're not the only frog in the kettle. I don't know if that's a saying. I'm going with it. Okay, fantastic. And next little bonus tip is that if they have a public office, spend time and money on an obscene gift and a handwritten card. And offer to pay a lot of money for them, not you, ahead of time for just 15 minutes. And I'll be very clear about that last point. The amount of people who are like, hey, I'll pay $100 for your time. That might be a lot of money for you. That might not be a lot of money for them. And so you got to understand who you're playing with, right? If you're going up to Carmen Electra, shoot, what's Gen Z's equivalent of that? Hailey Bieber? Now she's married. Shit. Who's a hot girl? Sydney Sweeney. Great. You're going to Sydney Sweeney and you're like, hey, babe, we got to dinner. Dinner's on me. Not a very compelling offer for Sydney Sweeney because they've got guys who will literally pay for all the food for the rest of her life and her travel and not just to get a picture of her underwear. Anyways, the point is, calm down. The point is that you have to make it relevant to the influencer or the super influencer that you're going for. It has to be something that they would actually value. And the personalization, I will say on a personal level, that first one about making a big obscene gift, it's more about the thought and the effort that someone can see that you incurred to put the gift together. So I got an amazing gift the other day. It's a full size, don't copy this, it's already been done, all right? So I got a full size modern art piece that had the background of an ace of spades, because we're in Vegas, our headquarters is in Vegas, and it had this cool graffiti-ish paint all over it of the quotes that I had influenced the artist on. And so it was all the quotes that he had had from me that had made an impact on his life. And I got that and I was like, this is so cool. And it was clear and obvious that he had spent a lot of time putting this together. And it was relevant to me. And so as a side note, this is yet another pro tip for you. If you're going to give a gift to somebody and you're a business owner, don't put your logo on it. Put theirs on it. Why would I wear someone else? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I want you to make something that I would want to wear all the time, and then I will think of you every time I wear it. Then I create the positive association. Okay, bonus points over. Fantastic. So you verify yourself, you look like a legitimate person, you send the magic message, you offer to incur costs, you try and send obscene gifts if you can. If not, you just offer to fly out if you can. And at the very least, you do a lot of work ahead of time, which I'll get to in a second, and you send the magic message. Great. Now, since it's time to send it, how many do we send? You send 100 messages per day, split between as many platforms as needed. 100. There's a rule of 100. It's consistent across industries. People talk about it. I don't know why, but I can say that it works. And so this will normally take about 4 hours per day. So set a kitchen timer and send the messages. You'd be amazed at how, like, if you just do this, it will take you that long, and just rip the Band-Aid off. Do it one day. Just do it one day. And then you'll realize that you didn't die when someone doesn't respond. And then you can do it a second day, and then a third. And then all of a sudden you'll start getting responses back. I just had a DM recently from a lady who's like, I read your book. I did my first day of the Rule of 100, and she was like, I already got 10 responses. She was like, this is unbelievable. And she had spent years delaying her first message. And I'm both happy for her and sad for her, because imagine the potential you waste every day you don't do what you need to do in order to get where you want. And then you keep repeating this until you get the replies. Bonus points, and this is what I was referencing earlier. If you already follow this influencer and you've interacted with them in some way, you've commented on a story, they liked something back, then you're already even in. You already have a history with that person. Even tangential, even tiny, it still makes you look more real than Rakesh. Now, I'll give you also a pro tip as being a quote super influencer, if you want to call me that. Share your target influencer stories. So if this is what my DMs look like. So this is what the outbox looks like or whatever. So lots of stuff, weirdo, obviously porn, blah, blah, blah. Now, when I see mentioned you in their story, I create content. And so if someone created content for me because they mentioned me, then it gives me the opportunity to put that on my story. And if it's valuable, then it provides value to my audience for no cost to me. That's what a mention in a story is, on top of the fact that they're spreading my message. So it's actually like one of the easiest ways to, quote, give to a super influencer is just share what they have. And also, if I go into a DM inbox and I see that because you can see how many times someone has mentioned you or shared a story of yours, and you see 15 shares, I think, oh, shoot, you know what? I've incurred a little bit of a debt with this person. It's so nice of them to share this stuff. They're making content for me. They're spreading people to me. I like them more at the onset. Day one, day zero. So if you want to get their attention, that's just a little pro tip for you. And a big reminder, because I want to keep hitting this point, is that you don't need 100 influencers. You just need one super influencer to take your company to the next level and transform your life. So, recap on section 2 on what you actually say to get them to respond. Number 1, be someone worth responding to. Verify yourself. 2, look like a legit person on your profile. 3, send the magic message or variations of that and personalize it. Personalize it, personalize it. Offer to incur costs to meet them. That's a little bit more advanced, but it will work. Send 100 messages per day. This takes time, but you only need one. And share the super influencer stories and posts. You will gain more affinity from them than if you do nothing at all. So now that we have picked our influencer and we have optimized our messages and we're sending them, we're going to start getting replies. So here's how you close the deal. Here are the steps. 1, over preparation equals profit. 2, every position has an advantage. 3, no's are yeses. So let's dive in. So before you speak with them, you want to prepare mock-ups of what their thing would look like on your product or the product that you want to make for them. Either way works. Remember, you can take your Nike shoes and say, we've got this idea for a line and we want to put it under you. Or I white label drinks and I want to make a drink that's just for you, Logan Paul. Or I want to make a tequila just for you, The Rock. Or I want to make a whiskey just for you, Conor McGregor. Or I want to make cosmetics just for you, Kylie. See where I'm going with this? This is not new, but people aren't seeing it. This is why the opportunity exists. So on top of the mock-ups, you want to show graphs. You want to be like, this is you now. This is you with me. I say this simply, but this is literally what you want to show someone. You want to show someone you actually did a little bit of math. all right? And you have some estimates and projections to go with that. You want to say, hey, you've got this many followers. If we post X times per week, we assume Y reach, and we convert 1% of clicks, which is standard based on these things that I've seen in the past. Within 12 months, we should be able to get to here. Does that sound interesting? If they say yes, awesome. You're one step closer to closing the deal. If they say no, you find somebody else. And you ask them, why isn't it interesting? Because you know what? They might give you some of the best feedback possible. And so bottom line is that you want to show that you worked a lot on this. And this is a key point, and you'll see it as a recurring point when you're getting with the super influencer. And I'll tell you why in a second. The main reason you do that is because they want to work with a partner that's going to work hard for them. And the best way to prove that you're going to do it later is to do it now, is to do it first. One of my favorite sayings is the best way to show an audience that you'll give them value after they buy is to give them value before they buy. Brilliant, I know. But guess what people don't do? They're like, I don't want to be taken advantage of. My time is valuable. No, it's not. And it's also relative. You're coming to ask something from them. Don't mistake it. Like, sure, you're going to come and be like, they're going to benefit too. But if you're going to a super influencer, you're the one who stands to gain far more than them because they have themselves and they can make that partnership with anyone and you want them to pick you. Don't think about the time it takes you to make this great. Think about how much time you're going to save by them agreeing, that you move years of work in the future rather than the fact that it takes you a day or two to prepare one presentation for 15 minutes so that you crush it. And so for those who are like, but how do I structure the presentation? This is how you structure the presentation. Promise. You tell them the good stuff that they're going to get from the partnership. Proof. You tell them why they should believe you. Past experience, or if you don't have that, stats of people like them doing something comparable. And if you have the product that you think that they should sell, bring it and show it to them. This is called a demo, aka a demonstration. You want to show them that because if they do have a strong brand, they're going to want the thing to be good because they want to make sure that they're serving their audience. And so if you've got the bee's knees of products, let them taste the honey. 3, plan. Tell them what the next steps look like. What's expected of them and what you're going to do. And by the way, make your side look better than theirs so that they look like they're getting the best side of the deal. And to be real, they should be because they've already spent all these years leading up to this. So you don't have to spend 5 years to build this audience. They already did that. And so they're going to just point, which takes little effort, but that's because they're leveraging the years of work they put in. And then you're going to spend the rest of your time present forward, making up for the fact that you didn't work the 5 to 10 years to build the brand. And that's the deal. And you might still have a smaller percentage of the overall pie, and it's still worth it. And so finally, you've got the proof, so you got the promise, you got the proof, you got the plan, and then you make the offer. So then you make an offer so good, they feel stupid saying no. Give them a Michael Jordan offer. If they're bigger than you, offer them more. If they're smaller, still offer a lot. And I'll give you a key little pro tip on this, help them grow. If you want to go after a middle-sized influencer, they may want growth more than they want money. And so then offer them that instead, or in addition. So you can give on these variables. It's like, okay, I can give you less in the economics, but I'm gonna invest all these resources. I'm gonna bring 5 guys I'm gonna hire for you to help you 10x your content. So we both win. Because real talk, if they are permanently associated with your brand, if they get 10 times bigger, guess who else gets 10 times bigger? You. Worth it. Now, I go through those 4 things, and the thing that most of you guys are gonna struggle with is proof. So let's talk about that. So this brings to the second point of this little mini part, which is getting them to say yes. Every position has an advantage and a disadvantage. I really want you to drill this in, all right? For example, if you're brand new, you sell the benefits of being brand new. So for example, I used to help agency owners with my company, UseAlan, which is a software for agency owners. And some of them service gym owners, which means they were a direct competition of mine in my other company, Gym Watch. And so they'd say, well, hey, it's easy for you to get gym owners. You're the 800-pound gorilla in the industry. To which I would reply, well, 1, I wasn't always the 800-pound gorilla. I started at 0 like everyone else, but I promised a different set of benefits. I said, hey, these companies don't care about you. So if I was in your position, I'd be like, Alex doesn't care about you. You're just a number to him. He just wants to hit quota. That's what his sales guys are doing. Right? You're going to get assigned to some doesn't care account rep who just clocks in every day that they train for a couple weeks just to get sped up. And they're never going to cater to you. But with me, you're my only brand partner. You have my full attention. I don't want 100 partners. I just want one good one I can go all in on. Someone I can work day and night to help and grow. And so you have my contact, you have my cell phone, you can come to my house, I'll cook you dinner, we'll be partners on this. It would be impossible for them to give you the same attention as me. Now, if you're thinking, wow, that's not a bad point. Well, then I wonder what the advantage of being the 800-pound gorilla is. Now, if I'm the 800-pound gorilla, so once Jim Lunch was the number one in the industry, I would argue the opposite angle. I would say, well, we have the best practices across a lot of accounts and I can feed them directly to you. This kid doesn't have any other experience. I can take the findings from thousands of accounts and feed them right to you. We have the infrastructure and scale to just plug you right into. This guy's got to hire all this. I've got specialists across all these different things that can help you at a higher level. And sure, Sarah is only good at media buying, but she's better at media buying than his generalist. And we can help you scale on the business side because we already have. We know what we're doing. And you'll know that your audience is getting taken care of because we have support infrastructure. Let's say this thing does crush. Well, guess what's going to happen to your little minnow? He's going to get overwhelmed because he's never had this much attention before. We know how to deal with it. We've done it before. And so the question is, do you want to trust your brand as someone who's just getting into the industry or someone with a track record? Do you want to risk what you work so hard for on someone who might not even be here in 6 months? We've been here almost a decade, and we're going to keep being here. So you're like, wow, okay. Every position has an advantage and a disadvantage, and you sell based on the position you have in the marketplace. So play to your advantages. If you're new to the game and you're just getting into it and this is your first super influencer partnership, then you're going to emphasize personal touch, care, flexibility, going all in. The owner mentality of this is us being partners. We're in this together. I'm going to do anything it takes to be successful. Now, if you're this guy, you're the 800-pound gorilla. Then you're going to talk about track record, the best practices, the infrastructure, the specialists across functions, brand association they're going to get from associating with your brand where they don't get that with the minnow. And once that happens, whichever play you have, they're going to say yes. And if they don't, then we go from our advantages and disadvantages to no's or yeses, which means we zoom out. So let's talk about that. If you don't have a track record, the other reason to over-prepare and make your presentations exceptional is that you can show them to other presentations that you make for other super influencers. So if I try to pitch Kylie on cosmetics and I make this beautiful deck and I show all these graphs and all these explanations, guess what I get to use? I can take that when I go to Conor McGregor and I say, this is some of the work that we prepared for other influencers. I'm not saying work we did for them. I'm just saying this is the type of stuff we do. Now, when you see that, what happens is people are like, they're gonna see who you're pitching and they're gonna see the work that you do over and over again. They're like, wow, this guy sustains a high level of professionalism and polish despite business he might not have won. And it's like, and the subtext is, imagine what he'd do if we were actually working together. And that's what you want them to think. And so even if you didn't pitch them, and this is the extra pro tip, is that even if you didn't pitch Kylie or Connor or Ryan Reynolds, you can show them alternative structures that you thought through. And if you show 3 different versions for the 3 different influencers, they might be like, okay, I saw you prepared me, and that was okay, but I really like what you did with Ryan Reynolds. I like that version. Can we do something like that for me? And so you give them more options to bait them into engaging with you. And so all these things help you look more legitimate and increase the likelihood that you get one super influencer. And if you get frustrated, don't. The gap between no and yes is where the opportunity to make life-changing money is. And so we went over a lot of stuff today. And to bring this home, I want to tell you guys 2 stories. One from a new business owner using the super influencer process, and the other from a very large established business owner, because I want to cater to both people in the audience right now. So I'll start with who both use the strategy for life-changing wealth. So let's start with the big business owner. So some of you guys have heard of Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. They run a very large portfolio of businesses, and they recently reached out to a super influencer, Matthew McConaughey. And Matthew McConaughey plugged into their infrastructure and they launched The Art of Living. So it was a product that Matthew was the front face of, and they did the delivery on the back end. And they branded the product around what he wanted, The Art of Living. And they had the most people attend ever. They had 2+ million people register for the event and almost 500,000 attend live and 1 million+ people see it. Unlike anything they'd ever had because they harnessed a single super influencer with a phenomenal brand. And I point this out to show you a single partner can bring in life-changing income. And so that's just an easy big business example. All right, those guys had the infrastructure, they reached out. I'm sure Tony Robbins, knowing all the presidents and things like that, he was probably 1 or 2 phone calls away from Matthew McConaughey and he said yes. Fine. But let's talk about a small business example, because I think for some of you guys here, this may be the most relevant for you. Since A-listers may feel out of reach for some of you, and I want to be clear, I don't think they're out of reach for you. I just think you may feel that way. And so I want to at least meet you where you're at. Here's two UK guys, Manx and Fahad, and they added $44,000 per month in recurring revenue without ads or a following. Neither of these guys has a following. And they weren't even the face, and that's key. Just like Congo with Logan Paul. No one knows who Congo is. No one knows who Manx and Fahad are. But when I show you who they partnered with, you might have heard of them. And so here's what they did. They found an influencer, Eddie Abu, a former pro bodybuilder from the UK. He only had 50,000 followers at the time. And they reached out, just like I said in the presentation earlier. And then he replied, doing the exact thing that I mentioned in the presentation earlier. And then they told him that he'd be their only partner and the only client he had, just like I said in the presentation earlier. And they'd spend all of their time growing his brand, which is exactly what they did to take him from 50K on, because that's what he really cared about. And he agreed. And then they asked him if they'd want to start a paid online community. And they told him what would be expected of him and gave him projections. Proof promise plan, here's the offer, and then they made the proof promise plan into a presentation for him. Notice, they focused on branding the product around him. It wasn't the Manx and Fahad community, it's the Abu crew, about people who are trying to get in shape, get healthy again. And he's older now, so he's a slightly older demographic. Which I find, actually as a side note, very funny because Manx and Fahad are 20-year-old guys. All right, and Eddie Abu is in his 50s or 60s now. And so then they launched the community, and in the first 30 days, two 20-year-old guys with no following and no money got to $44,000 in monthly recurring revenue. In the United States, at least, that's a top 1% income. And I want to be very clear. It's not because, Manx and Fahad were able to take 5 years of work and compress it into one series of conversations because they were willing to give up the upside. They were willing to get rejected by the other 100 people they reached out to that didn't say yes so they could get the one that did. And so this worked because Eddie's audience wanted more high-value access to him. So Manx and Fahad made that happen. Very simple. And so they benefited from his brand, and he benefited from their operations and the work that he wasn't willing to do. So when I talked to them, they were like, he just wants to make content. He doesn't want to do anything else. And so we just said, we'll do everything else. We'll bring the camera, we'll do the recording, we'll do the editing, we'll even put the stories up that have the CTAs with the links so that we drive people to the community, and we'll manage the community itself, and we'll send you a cut of the money. And he said, cool. And so they both profited. And so the point is, if you actually just follow this process, you can jump forward multiple levels of income quickly because you only need one super influencer to change your life. Just one. And so for more tactics about this stuff, because we're getting close on time, I have free books and courses on outreach using affiliates. Also, if you zoom into that little picture of Manx and Fahad, you see a little book that they have in the background, the only book they have referenced there. It's a good book, just check it out. And you can watch this stuff on my site. So I actually have the training for reaching out, getting affiliates, more in-depth stuff, more scripts, all this stuff. It's absolutely free on my site, acquisition.com/training. It's all free, all right? And if you don't have a product to recruit a super influencer with, so the first one's if you already have a product and you want to just go straight to getting them to promote it, that's for you. And if you don't have a product, then you can start like Manx and Fahad by building a community for an influencer. And the reason this is kind of like a one-size-fits-all product for most influencers is that pretty much every influencer literally gets followed because people want access. They want more exposure to them. And so all you do is just have more exposure, more content, more access just behind a paywall so that the highest fans get what they want and everybody else still gets stuff for free. So it's a win-win. All right, and so if you want that, school.com/games. It's also free to start. So if you're like, I don't know what the product, you can start one for free and you can go start approaching influencers to do it. All right, so I hope that I fulfilled my promise to you from the beginning in the 3-step super influencer process, which is 1, know how to pick them, 2, know how to get them to talk to you, and 3, how to get them to promote your stuff so you can create life-changing wealth. And hopefully I gave you the tools to leapfrog your income if you actually take action. So there's all your free stuff. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy.